Welcome to Compassion Speaks, where we give a voice to the not-for-profits in the community. I'm your host, Kevin Weaver, and today on our show we have Sierra Weaver and Ethan Weaver. Welcome, Sierra, and welcome, Ethan. Let me just say that Sierra is my daughter-in-law, and Ethan is my 2-year-old grandson. The reason that we have Sierra and Ethan on today is because this month is Epilepsy Awareness Month. And our encouragement is wear purple. I got my purple tie, and we've got our purple balloons, and Ethan's in purple, and Sierra's in purple. And we want to focus on Epilepsy Awareness Month because there are many people who suffer from this particular diagnosis, and there are many groups who support people with epilepsy. Many fine groups on this mountain and many national groups that my challenge and my encouragement for folks listening or watching is that you would get involved. And so let's start, Sarah, with Ethan, his diagnosis. There's a lot to say. We've only got 11 minutes and 50 seconds. All right. We've got a lot to say, but let's talk about his diagnosis for a minute. What is he diagnosed with?
Well, he is diagnosed with a rare form of epilepsy called malignant migrating partial seizures of infancy. That's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is.
I think I should back up slightly by some people might not know exactly what epilepsy is.
Okay.
So I'm sure most people have heard of seizures. Anyone can have a seizure. You know, sometimes a fever could bring on a seizure. A severe deficiency in something, a severe illness could bring on a seizure for anyone. Anyone has the potential to have a seizure. You get diagnosed with epilepsy when you've had recurrent, unprovoked seizures. So seizures happening without the fever or the severe illness.
Right.
And you can be diagnosed at birth. You can be diagnosed at any time in your lifetime. Some people live their whole life without epilepsy and are diagnosed with epilepsy, you know, a matter of months or years before they pass away in their old age. So epilepsy is a very broad diagnosis. There's a big spectrum.
Right.
So a milder form of epilepsy might be someone who is normally functioning like me, goes to work, does everything, but is prone to possibly occasionally having seizures. Maybe, you know, once a year or something.
So you hear amongst like children who are a year or younger, a high fever can spike a seizure. They call that a febrile seizure, but that's not necessarily epilepsy. Okay.
Yeah, so a seizure isn't epilepsy, but seizures are the main symptom of the diagnosis of epilepsy. So the far end of the spectrum, the really bad end of the spectrum of epilepsy, really severe diagnosis is like Ethan.
So he's had, when you say numerous unprovoked seizures, what's Ethan's condition looked like in the past? And what does it look like now?
So he had his first seizure about maybe 3 days after birth, and it was very subtle because newborn seizures are subtle, and I didn't realize that it even was a seizure until he was 5 days old. Got diagnosed. We spent a number of months in Phoenix Children's Hospital, and he had up to 200 to 300 a day.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was on prescription seizure medications.
Okay.
Now he wasn't expected to live to maybe 6 months or a year. Now he'll turn 2 this coming Sunday.
Well, and that's why we're so excited, and we needed to highlight this with this month of November being Epilepsy Awareness Month. And again, and how to show support is to wear purple, look for different groups in the community. Do you have any idea of how people or what groups are available to folks?
Well, a lot of people are aware that, you know, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, the pink ribbon. So the purple ribbon stands for epilepsy.
Right.
And for how prevalent epilepsy is, I'm surprised that more people don't know about it or talk about that November is Epilepsy Awareness Month. 1 out of every 26 individuals will be diagnosed with epilepsy at some point in their lifetime.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think it's 1 out of every 22 children is diagnosed with epilepsy.
See, that's staggering. And, you know, I wonder if there are a lot of people who just kind of suffer alone, and you know, that's why it's so important that we make folks aware. I know, of course, being Ethan's grandpa, that his condition and his success really has a lot to do with the generosity of people in this community.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's the Epilepsy Foundation of Arizona. We find a lot of support through an online Facebook group for his specific diagnosis.
Okay.
I'm not aware of there being an epilepsy chapter up here in the White Mountains.
Okay.
But I think it's definitely something I'd like to see up here. I'd be curious to know how many people up here in the White Mountains have epilepsy.
Right.
And if anyone wants to contact me, Ethan has a public Facebook page,
Okay.
www.facebook.com/Ethan'sStrength.
Ethan's Strength.
And you can message me on there. I want to know how many people have epilepsy up here, and if there's enough interest, maybe we could get a chapter of the Epilepsy Foundation up here. It's a national organization.
And that's a wonderful idea. And maybe even if a person hasn't been diagnosed with epilepsy, but they've had seizures in the past, get a hold of Sierra. Get involved and there's so much need. There's so many groups up here that are helpful to people with disabilities in general. The Lions Club, Camp Tadia, and of course all the different clubs like the Elks and I know the VFW and on and on and on the list goes. And several of those groups and many private people have been involved in Ethan's care.
Oh yes. There's so many people who have been so generous and donated funds to Ethan to help with some of his care that's not covered by insurance. People, coming over and bringing us dinner and helping clean our house, and just the community. I've just been so touched. And I'm sure there's a number of individuals who have contributed to him that I haven't had the chance to thank. So if any of them are watching,
thank you. Yeah. I recall early in his diagnosis, and correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't his disease also referred to as drug-resistant epilepsy?
Yes, yeah. So Phoenix Children's Hospital tried about 10 prescription seizure medications, anti-seizure medications that are used to control epilepsy, had no control whatsoever. He was still having up to 200 to 300 a day.
And so that's why I know on behalf of Sierra and Ethan and the family that we are very grateful to those who have given and helped. I know where Ethan's dad works over at Cell One. They've been very supportive.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of what Sarah and Michael have been really pretty much forced to use as far as his treatment is concerned is not covered by medical insurance.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing that helped lower the amount of seizures he was having is something that's very controversial right now, but medical marijuana. And he had to be approved by 2 doctors to get his Arizona card for that.
Right.
And
so he was, at one time, he was the youngest card carrier in Arizona.
Yes, he got his card at 1 month of age to try CBD oil.
Right.
But it took us till about 5 or 6 months of age to find the right one for him, because that's the thing with medical marijuana. It's not prescribed. You're kind of on your own.
Right.
It's not covered by insurance.
So there's a lot of trial and error.
You have to be doctor approved.
Right.
And approved through the state of Arizona. But yeah, that's why we needed the donation.
So how does a 2-year-old baby take medical marijuana?
He has a feeding tube, a G tube, that was surgically placed in his stomach, and it's an oil.
Right.
And we put it in a syringe, and we put it into his feeding tube, and it goes right into his tummy.
And he also uses suppositories, right?
Yeah, for rescue.
For like a rescue. So, yeah, again, I appreciate you talking about that openly, Sarah. I know it's a very controversial topic, but,
it needs to be talked about.
It absolutely needs to be talked about, and as a chaplain or a preacher, before Ethan, my jury would have really been out. I didn't know how I felt, and probably would have said marijuana, no. But I've watched him, and when you see a young child, especially your grandchild, suffer, and nothing is touching it, you have to do something. So, and it's worked. It's been helpful, and so again, I smile because he makes some of the most adorable faces. So, Sarah, I told you 13 minutes goes by quick. We're running out of time. Is there anything else you wanted to highlight?
Just the generosity that's of the community that's come up since he's been born. I've just been blown away. And I'd encourage other parents who have a child with epilepsy to reach out to your community if you're struggling.
Exactly.
Reach out to your friends and family.
Exactly.
You know, it was very humbling. It
Yeah.
was hard for me in the beginning to admit that, you know, we need help or to ask for help, but you can only do so much on your own.
So now Ethan's condition, it's considered terminal, right?
Yes, his condition is considered terminal. Most of the babies diagnosed or born with his condition, it's caused from a gene mutation. It's genetic. Most of them pass away before a year of age.
It's impressive when you say it. What's his gene mutation?
KCNT1.
KCNT1. And I know that Sarah and Michael and the family have found a lot of help through the internet, and not just locally, but internationally, right?
Yeah, our Facebook group has families with children with this diagnosis from all around the world.
Yeah, all around the world. And even when Ethan was first seeking or getting treatment down at Phoenix Children's Hospital, you had doctors involved back in Pennsylvania, New York, and what other parts of the world, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were communicating with the doctors here in Arizona.
Yeah. Well, boy, we need an hour to talk about this.
Well,
Folks,
if people want to know more, they can go to his Facebook page.
what was it again?
www.facebook.com/Ethan'sStrength.
And I've done this. If you Google Ethan's Strength, it'll get to it. So yeah, folks, get involved, not just for this. I mean, this is my grandchild, obviously. I have a very vested interest, but he's not alone. 1 in 26 people, 1 in 22 children will be diagnosed with epilepsy. There are a lot of social awareness groups out there. This one has come very close to home. I encourage you, read about it, get involved. If it's not epilepsy, the American Cancer Society, or on and on and on. The list goes of groups that we as a community, we as concerned citizens, we need to get involved. So, well, Sierra, thank you. And Ethan, my bunkie.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, you're so welcome. And we will definitely do this again, bring you back, check on his progress. I'd like to make it an annual event.
Sure. Sure.
That'd be great. So thanks
you.
again. You're welcome. So folks, stay tuned, and we will be right back with our next guest. Welcome back to Compassion Speaks. Joining us now on the show is Roy Figueroa. Roy, welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic.
Good.
Thank you.
Hey, why Roy's with us today is because, we just had Sierra and Ethan on, and we're talking about honoring and recognizing National Epilepsy Awareness Month. And Roy and I are, how are we related? Let's see, Sarah's my daughter-in-law, and you're married to her sister. So that would be, Sarah's my daughter-in-law, and Celeste would be maybe a daughter-in-law, and then you would be a son-in-law. So you're an in-law.
So, yeah, a double father-in-law.
There you go.
I'm not sure how that works.
Well, Roy, of course, and his family, and we've been part of the family now for, Sarah and Michael have been married for 10 years. Mm-hmm. And here's what I wanted to highlight. We mentioned in the first segment that it's important for people in the community to get involved with community groups, but we're finding as we go through this process of having a very severely disabled person in our home, that it's become so important for family to gravitate to one another and for us to utilize the resources of family. And Roy, you and your family have been so important to this process and to this journey. And I know that we highlight not-for-profits, and Roy and his father and his children are really excellent musicians, and they do a lot of community and charity work. And so we'll get to that in a minute, but let's talk about just the importance of family and using family as a resource to family.
Oh gosh, yeah, family. I've always been raised in a family environment where family was really the most important thing. I was always closer with my siblings than with my friends and with my parents, and we're still really tight knit. And now I have a large family, as you know, and it's really my anchor. The reason why we do everything is for family, and our extended family. We feel the same. We're tight knit, a tight knit group, and we help each other out any way we can, because we love to. That's what we do.
Yeah, you used a really important term, that your family has become your anchor. I was talking to somebody the other day, and we were speaking theologically about our purpose in life. And really, if you reduce it down and really think openly about it, our purpose in life is family. And the importance of strong family units is something that I really wanted to emphasize during this session. Because as we come in and out of difficult times, and as we grow, and of course as we lose loved ones through our life and through just the natural process of aging, family becomes extremely important. And it's vital that we kind of get back to that. We live in a beautiful technological age, but a lot of that technology has separated us. It's fragmented us. We can live in other parts of the world, and we can be in constant contact or communication, but it's not the same as sitting down like this, eyeball to eyeball, and saying how important family is.
Well, absolutely. And oftentimes you find people, they're communicating across the country, but they're forgetting about the people sitting right there in the same room.
Exactly.
And it's really that proximity and human connection is super important, I think.
It absolutely is, and family kind of manifests itself in many different ways. One of my dearest friends is Patty Lyman. She lives over at Salterra, and she's been on the show. I absolutely have to bring her on again sometime. But she tells me, I pick her up, bring her to church, and every Sunday when I bring her home, she just tells me how much she appreciates me. And she says, you know what? I have my church family, I have my blood family, I have my Salterra family, and we do. We have our work families, we have our school families, and family is the key. I like talking to people from the Great Depression era. Many of them are not here anymore, but Roy, they all say the same thing to me. Those were the most difficult times that we ever went through as a nation, but they were the best times because of family. Yes. I mean, family is just so important.
Well, yeah, and like you said, during difficult times, that tends to be when people really gravitate to their family anchor and to those connections, because we have that truly heartfelt connection with each other. And when you're going through hard, difficult times, your family, if you're blessed to have one,
right,
they're the ones that can really share that pain with you, help
right,
bear some of the load, and they really feel what you're feeling, and it helps.
Yeah, and thank you for making that point. For there are many people out there watching that maybe your family is no longer around, or they've died, or whatever the case may be. I know that you can find family strength in surrogates or adoptions or taking people in. It's not just about blood. It's about sharing something in common, and that is love for humanity and love for one another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Gosh, we're the human family, and we all have that in common, and I really love that and feel that deeply. And I guess it gets more tangible the more time you spend together. So even like you said, your friends
exactly,
become your family because you're sharing, things about each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you say the more time we spend, and I would have said it a different way. I would say it becomes more aware, more valuable the older we get. Every time I look in the mirror, I think, oh my goodness, we're getting older. We are. And that has everything to do with everything. And I know that family is important to you. And again, the purpose of today is just to let you know from our family to yours, how important your family has been to Michael and to Sarah, to Ethan, and to the kids during this very difficult time. Because, every day with Ethan and living with people with epilepsy, we wake up to a new awareness and the new joys of that day, but also the new fears of perhaps an impending doom, because Ethan's diagnosis and disease is terminal. And, we don't know how long we're going to have him. So we make the most. And I share with folks at hospice where I work, my hospice family, how important it is not to take for granted the moment that we have. Even this moment is such a special time to sit with you, to interview you, talk to you, get to know you a little bit better. And something I want to say to folks who are watching, you don't see this, but off this side is all of Roy's children. You wouldn't even know that there's 100 children sitting out there. I mean, they're perfectly and beautifully behaved. And I watch these kids everywhere they go. I mean, Roy, you and Celeste, you've done a beautiful job with family.
Oh my gosh, thank you for that. And I do take a lot of pride in that. And I also just feel fortunate because they are such good children. Yeah. I mean, they're incredible, and we hear that all the time. And I don't take the credit. I don't, I've never been much of a disciplinarian or anything. They're really good kids, and I'm so thankful to get to share time with them. And you brought up Sierra and Michael, and it's a difficult thing because it's so sad a lot of times with Ethan, and we feel that, and we get together and we can share in that sorrow, and also we like to be able to help lift that when we get together and just to kind of let's just do something fun together. Let's feel good together. Let's just hang out and enjoy. Life is good.
Exactly. And somebody said, and it's so true, and we'll begin to wind down with this because we've got a special treat. We're going to bring Roy's children on, and they're going to sing for you to close out the show. But it does take a village. So, folks, we thank you for joining us today, and please tune in next month to hear Compassion Speak.
Bright blessed days and dark sacred nights, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, how also are the faces of people passing by. I see friends shaking hands saying, how do you do?